In the music therapy milieu, we are dividing music therapy from community music therapy. Community music therapy is a field within music therapy which is occupied with the use of music therapy in context, in the environment of the child, and how we can work with the child in context, with, for example, school context and the leisure context, and so on and so on. And I will try to get into that kind of discussion today. But first of all, how do you play off? Do you press this one? Okay, just a little second. Okay, just wait. This you can wait a little. Yeah. This lyric, written on a sheet of paper, was brought to a music therapy session by an adolescent coming from Afghanistan. And the lyric is written in Dari. Does any one of you is able to read this? No, I am not. You know the letters, yeah. When this young man, a refugee, 15 years old, came to music therapy, he brought with us this piece of paper. And this piece of paper actually was a point of departure to get to know him, to get to know his story, and to try to translate some of this story into Norwegian and English. We can listen to the song now, and yeah. Yeah, so during therapy, we had a lot of conversations, and we got to learn that this lyric is about the loss of his family in his home country, and it is about the dangers of being a refugee traveling from Afghanistan to Norway. As some of you might know, that is a very dangerous travel. So through this lyric, he expresses the fear of dying, the fear of losing his friends, and the fear of going into the unknown and be unable to determine what is going to happen with him in the future. Later on, this song was performed with his peers in a community which we call Come Closer. Come Closer is a community where several adults and adolescents can get together and perform music and lyrics in the community house. In that way, we can integrate these adolescents and help them with a vehicle for the communication of what they have been through, what they want to communicate, and then we can include them in the society in Norway. Yes. I will come back to this with a theoretical discussion later. This is where I work as an associate professor, GAMUT, the Grieg Academy of Music Therapy Research Center in Bergen. This is the place where I also met Kochawit Elephant the first time. The research center has two journals. It's Nordic Journal of Music Therapy and Voices. Voices is an open access journal which everyone can go in and see. And Nordic Journal is a Routledge journal. In the center we do research both internally and externally financed. The research which I do is financed by my other employee, which is called Aleris. Aleris is a private company in Scandinavia who deals with health and care system. So, and they are also funding research. So this is the research project I am currently doing. It is a postdoc project after my PhD. It's called Towards Independent Living in the Community, a qualitative study of music therapy practice in child welfare. Information, dissemination and implementation of music therapy in child welfare. And the idea of the project is to increase the use of music therapy in child welfare system in whole Scandinavia. We have come a little bit on the way, but we have a long way to go. We have some positions in the systems, but we need even more. So this is my try to help. The theoretical background for both my PhD and a postdoc is related to the Child Convention, the UN Child Convention. You might know of the Child Convention. Everyone knows that. Can we check with hands up? Yeah? Not everyone. Who does not know about the Child Convention of the UN? Sorry. You don't. The UN Child Convention of the Children's Rights. Yeah, everyone knows about that. Yeah. The Children's Rights Convention can be divided into 3 main categories. It has a lot of articles, I think it's 54. And the articles can be divided into 3 subcategories, which is called provision, protection, and participation. Provision has to do about giving the child enough resources in order to survive, clothing, food, shelter, and so on. Protection has to do about protecting the child against sexual abuse, as we have heard a lot about here. And participation has to do with letting the child's voice be heard in such a way that it can be used to form and change the practice. In Norway, we agree that the first 2, we actually are quite good at it. But participation, we are not good enough on that. So the main idea for me is to show how music therapy can be used in order to facilitate participation in child welfare system. This picture is used in order to illustrate how the 3 concepts comes together. This young man is skiing in the Norwegian mountains. Skiing in the Norwegian mountains can be very harshful. You need to have clothing, a helmet, and ski. You need to be provided with the necessary resources in order to go to the mountain. If you have the necessary resources, then you are protected against dangers of, for example, falling and cracking your head skull in a tree. So, given the 2 first concepts, you can actually participate in a sport which is very popular amongst adolescents in Norway. So all of the 3 concepts is very connected. I think it was Dikla who illustrated for me that we should set up the concept like in a circle, not like in a line like this. I will work on that. Triangle, yeah. We can use the triangle to show how they are connected. Further, the theoretical discussion of the project is related to 2 main theoretical perspectives. One we have already heard a lot about here, which is trauma-informed care. Trauma-informed care will take care of provision and protection in a very large extent. In Norwegian child welfare system, we use the trauma-informed care thinking a lot in order to protect the children amongst a lot of things. You may know about the 3 pillars of trauma-informed care. It has to do with creating enough safety for the child in order to be safe enough to build relations to grown-ups. And if we have the 2 provided, the child may be able to regulate emotional feelings. And given the 3 pillars, we might be able to co-regulate together in the community. So this is a very important part of the way we think music therapy can be facilitated. Music therapy can be used in order to create a safe space through, for example, musicking in a musical group or in a choir, a rock band, whatever the child feels safe about. If we create the safe space, we can create relations to adults, to peers, to teachers, to the community. We can be able to go out and do something with our lives. And given the two pillars, we can start to understand ourselves, our feelings, how we can regulate, for example, anxiety or fear. So we agree on that. But the problem very often is this ladder of participation. Providing children with enough safety relations and possibilities to regulations very often demands a lot of the adults to decide over the children, to make decisions for the children, to make systems that the children will feel safe in. And sometimes we forget that the children themselves has the best solutions. They have a very important voice which should be heard. And sometimes the voice, letting them have a voice, is actually in conflict with giving them enough safety. If we put children on a stage where they can tell something, they also will feel anxiety and unsafety, and sometimes very, very nervous. So we have to be able to deal with the conflicts and paradoxes amongst these two perspectives. So let's start with the ladder. On the bottom you will find manipulation, which is a very bad thing to do with children, but it very often happens. I have 6 minutes left. 7. Okay, we can go faster. Decoration is when you use children as a means to show how good we are as adults. We can see that very often, for example, in research. Or we can see it in schools, where the teacher can be very proud because this class had a very high degree of high grades. And we forget, what did you really feel about this school participation? They didn't feel good about it at all. They were pressured and yeah. And the next is tokenism. That is when you pretend that you let children have a voice. But actually you say, I can listen to you, but that's it. We do whatever we want anyway. Okay, the next steps is about grades of the degrees and levels of how we implement young people's voices in a process where we let them have an impact on what is going to happen. We think that community music therapy and cultural activities provided through these kinds of projects has a possibility to raise up in this area, which is actually participation. These are the levels of participation, which these are the level of non-participation. These levels we should not be close at all, but try to get as high as on the ladder as we can. Okay, so what we have to do is actually ask the kids and the adolescents, what do you think? If you can do that, we can get closer to a kind of a participatory practice where we can implement what they are saying in the decisions. So, I will give you some examples of what they told me in my research project. They actually told me about the lack of participation in the child welfare system. For example, when I first came into the child welfare institution, I lost my independence. The adults told me I was not old enough to think for myself or to make decisions concerning my life situation. It was a very bad feeling, losing control over my own life. I think it's the worst I ever experienced. It's the feeling I never want to feel again. Okay, that's serious business. The next one, I have experienced that my opinions don't matter. Adults make decisions without letting me having anything to say. Such experiences make me feel bad. I remember especially one incident. I wanted to move back home to my mother, and the adults in the institutions wouldn't let me. Of course, we can't let children have the last word every time, but we should at least listen to them and try to implement it in what we do. The role of music for these kids is very big. They think music is very, very important. And to take the short story, because I don't have enough time, they say and they tell us that music is a vehicle in which they can communicate to adults, to peers, and to the community what they think, feel, and want to change. And that is not a small statement. They even tell us that if you create a music therapy cultural activity, we can create a kind of community of practice where they can learn something together. When they, for example, play in a rock band, or they set up a performance, or they create lyrics, or they make drama, dance, whatever, one told us that we learned that we have to care about the others in the group. We don't harass a member in the group who has a bad day. We learn about respect and how to treat others. We learn what's okay and what's what's not. This is a kind of learning which is very useful in a child welfare setting, because the adolescents and the children we are talking about are those who appeared in Robert Geffner's pyramid. They are in the pyramid. And if we can help them, we can actually do something really useful for them and the society, for their parents, for a lot of people. There is a lot of money we can spare, and we can save lives. So, to conclude, we need, in a child welfare setting, 3 strategies at least to work with music therapy. We need the community music therapy as a meeting. We need to work with the individual adolescents, to get to know him or her. Based on that, we can make some kind of a practice. Then we need a strategy involving a group, some kind of a social activity. Community music therapy has the possibility to establish a meeting place where several people can come together. And third, we need a strategy where we can raise the voices to the society and have an impact on the policymakers, the politicians, the media, and to use the stories from the kids to promote their views and to change the society. Lately, I've been thinking about Bronfenbrenner's ecological model of different systems, and I think this is becoming more and more useful for what we are thinking about in community music therapy, and I just want to show it to you. I have 1 minute. This system, or the systems, is connected together. The microsystem, mesosystem, exosystem, the macrosystem, and the chronosystem is all a big system. And working with community music therapy, or any kind of therapy, I think we have to relate to the different levels in order to provide good enough practice, at least in the way the UN Child Convention wants us to do it. This is my articles. You can check it out. Thank you.